Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. We had a tank of technical difficulties. Ramona is still maybe going to be fashionably late because of some technical glitches, but we're going to get started and have faith that she will arrive at some point as we get started. My name is Lindsay Clark, and I'm running for mayor of Medicine Hat. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself before we give the other candidates, Jansen, Alison Van Dyke, and Ramona, a chance to tell you about themselves and their platforms, and then we're going to go into some questions. So I grew up in Medicine Hat. I was originally from a farm in the middle of nowhere between Oyen and Bindloss, and had a wonderful time there. It really was a great experience. I have a big family, so we got to just kind of bond there, and it was nice kind of being away from the stresses of life. I didn't realize that, there was stress in life until, I got older. And so we moved to Medicine Hat in about 1988, and I went to school here. I went to high school here. And then I moved to Lethbridge to go to school, get my science degree at the U of L. And then I moved on to University of Victoria to get my law degree there. I worked in Vancouver as a lawyer for about 10 years, but I always just wanted to move home. My family is here. We have a ranch south of town, or my parents have a ranch south of town. And I just always really wanted to come home. And I got the opportunity to do that in 2017 when I got a job with the city in the solicitor's department. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was so great. I got to participate in public service. I got to learn about the city and what the city did, all of the wonderful things that, we benefit from because we are the community that we are. I think most of us have like rural background or rural adjacent background. And so we all have this sense of community, and that is amazing. I don't know, like in Vancouver, you would ride up in an elevator with people and they would just look at the wall. Here, you can talk to strangers. If you're at a coffee shop, it's no big deal to say hello to the people sitting beside you. So I was so happy to be back to that. And working for the city, I got to serve the people of my community, the community that I love and that shares the values that I have. But as I kind of started continuing on with the city over the last 2 years, it sort of started seeming like the values that I had, that I grew up with in Medicine Hat, were not shared by everyone, to my surprise. That there was one set of rules for certain people and a completely different set of rules for everybody else. And there was a lack of fairness, a lack of recognition that no matter who you are, you deserve to be treated with respect and kindness, that everybody is somebody. Like, you should treat everybody like they're somebody, regardless of whether you have something to gain from them, whether you don't know them, whether you've known them all your life. Everybody is somebody, and that's really important to me. The other thing I think that's one of my core values that I gained from growing up here and growing up kind of with a rural background is that we need to maintain what we have. I don't know, we're kind of a throwaway society now, but growing up, I'm sure the other candidates on this call can attest that you just took care of what you had because that's what you had. And our communities now, we need to maintain what we have. It's not fancy. It's not going to get us on the front page of the news, but we need to maintain what we have. We need to maintain our recreation facilities. We need to maintain our roads and our infrastructure because that's where people live. People need to love living here. And we can talk about tourism, how to attract people here. Well, we got a great focus group right here. do you want to live here? Do you love living here right now? And if you don't, what is stopping you from loving living here? And I think a lot of people that I've been talking to are saying that they do like living here, but they're feeling like we have kind of let go of the maintenance piece. We've been searching for something big and fancy and shiny and new to save us. When really, we have a great community. We just need to protect it. We need to maintain it. And we need to draw on our roots of community to continue on with what we have always had, which is a beautiful community. But if we start picking apart, losing our recreation centers, letting our sidewalks crumble, people aren't going to love living here anymore, which means no tourism, no businesses want to come here. And so that maintenance kind of attitude also has to be applied to our business community. Why would people come here to do business if our existing businesses don't love doing business here? It's so simple. We have to stick to the fundamentals. We have a wonderful business community. We have amazing industry. Are they happy doing business here? What can we do to get them to stay? What can we help them with to expand? Most jobs are created by existing businesses. We don't grow by making big bets on businesses that might be successful. We grow by betting on the businesses that are successful, one job at a time, right here in our community. And that's what we need to continue doing. Incremental growth is the way to go. We have a great community. Why are we looking for someone to save us outside of the community? Our business community and the people that we have, that's where we need to focus. We need to focus on making the people here and the businesses here happy to live here, love living here. And by doing that, we will attract people, we will attract business, because those are going to be the best ambassadors for our community. So having said that, I want to introduce the fellow candidates that I have here. Marco Jansen.
Hello, everyone.
Alison Van Dyke.
Hi, everyone.
And Ramona Robins.
Yeah, my name is not Annalise. That's my child's name. And apparently she uses Zoom for things more than I do. So not Annalise, although I do like the name better than Ramona. But I am
Ramona is such a cool name.
I'm glad.
You have to own that.
You know what, Marco, as someone with sort of a unique name yourself, I will take that from you. And we can just enjoy each other's names.
Yeah, you don't even want to think about my middle name. It's the Dutch version of Godfrey. It's pronounced Godefriedus.
Godefriedus.
And that's good.
That's not bad.
Well, we're just happy that you were able to get on.
Yes.
Yeah,
Ramona.
it was a bit of an effort, but here I am.
So last in, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your platform, Ramona, and then we'll go through everyone and discuss each of their platforms, and then we're going to have some questions. But I think this time it'd be good to have a little bit of interaction, discussion. If there's any pieces that any of you think, well, I don't quite agree with that, or if you want to add something, we're going to try and accommodate that a little more. But for now, let's do platforms. Ramona.
For sure. So my name is not Annalise, Ramona Robins, and I've been in Medistat since 1998. When I graduated from law school, I got a job here and I completed my articling here in 1999, and I've been here ever since. So I was in private practice for a couple of years, and then I joined the Crown Prosecutor's Office in 2002. And then in 2009, I became the Chief Crown Prosecutor. So at a certain point, I think I convinced the paper to just write that the Crown Prosecutor did something as opposed to Ramona, because it was, it's as Marco has pointed out, it's an unusual name, and so that sort of caught me some attention. Sometimes in places I wouldn't want attention. So anyway, but I have been the chief crown prosecutor since 2009, and in the summertime I was promoted into a management position, so I no longer need to prosecute the citizens of Medicine Hat. And it was at that point I thought I still have more in the tank. I've served the community for 20 years in sort of a justice role, but I think there's so much more that I can do than that. And so I'm hoping that people would agree that I've got a skill set that could be very useful in council. I read a lot of information, I ask a lot of questions, but I'm also really collaborative. And I have been saying, and I said it to Alison today, we're at the park together. Marco was there as well. We should have had a picnic, you guys. I don't know what we were thinking. Why didn't we bring beverages? We're all there together. Anyway, we were chitty-chatting, but it's sort of like we're at the point now where it's like a social studies class full of 30-some students, and the teachers, which are the voters, are going to pick 8 people for a group project. So when I was a kid, people like to be on a group project with me because I'm very hardworking, very diligent, but also really work well with others. And I think that's what we really need at council. And also I like to communicate, obviously, by my chatty nature. I love to talk to people. I like to learn. I like to gather information. And my training in law and my training in my career is to analyze that information and come up with solutions. So problem solving is kind of my thing. I am interested in a lot of things that are related to my job, mental health, addictions. Those are things very near and dear to my heart. I'm also very interested in growing business. And as Lindsay, you've said, I mean, my dad was a small business person. And so the idea of growing our local businesses, rather than getting the 500-person company that's miraculously going to give us all these jobs and money, I would rather find 100 businesses that want to grow by 5 people. And I don't think that the city has yet given enough emphasis on what we already have that is so valuable. So I'm very interested in that and making low-risk financial commitments.
Yeah.
I think the risks that have been taken have been troubling. And I think that's where we get to so many people running for council, because we all have friends and family who have expressed concern about what's happening in City Hall and have asked, if we would consider running. We all had that. We all had 25 people or more who said this is a person that we would like to see on council. And when you have 30 plus people doing that, that's a bit unusual. So it is a bit of a message that there's something going on that people want to see change.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ramona.
Thank
sorry.
you. Oh, no. I'm going to talk about seniors because I love them, but I can talk about them later.
Okay. Alison, over to you.
Okay, thank you. You can hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Yeah, so I grew up on a farm just outside of Medicine Hat out by Rattlesnake Dam. But I consider Medicine Hat to be my hometown. And grew up here, went away to college, worked away a couple times. I like to joke, so we lived away a little bit when our kids were really small and I wasn't working. And I like to joke that I won because we were trying to determine if we were going to move back to Medicine Hat or to my husband's hometown of St. Albert. And so I always tell everyone that I was the winner in that one, that we are here permanently. So yes, I love Medicine Hat. I'm just like a huge fan of so many things about it. Obviously, family and friends here, a lot of memories too. And I feel really passionate about the community. And so I do a lot of community work. I work for a not-for-profit, Community Food Connections Association. And some people might be familiar with us. We run community gardens, community kitchens, the Good Food Club. We do things like the Seedy Saturday Seed Exchange that happens in the spring, and educational programming too, for the community, for agencies and the general public. And then I also do a fair bit of volunteer work on boards. So I'm the chair of Palliser Friends of Medicare here in Medicine Hat, and I've been on that board for over a decade. And also school councils and fundraising societies, Canadian Parents for French, a provincial board, Alberta Food Matters, So as you may have imagined, food is a big interest in my life. And then healthcare and education and public services. So I'm running on a campaign of maintaining our existing public services and strengthening them. So that's a really important value to me in our community. We have, like you've said, Lindsay, we've got some really great, not always flashy, but really good services serving our community. So like neighborhood and smaller scale community is important to me, walkable neighborhoods, and equity is really important value for me. So the idea that you don't just have financial access to facilities, but physical access. And I have a big concern around what will happen if we move just entirely to large complexes. And also the electric utilities was a big issue for me. That's kind of the thing that made me decide to run. So in January, the city announced they were looking at potentially selling the electric utilities, and I had an issue with that. So I worked on a campaign and petition to stop the city from doing that, which they have now taken a step back from doing. One of the big issues with that for me was communication around it and lack of consultation with the community, which is what I feel was happening already last fall with the rec center closures as well. So, and other issues like the Viner Center, I mean, having a contract, a city-run facility go to a Calgary organization. So just kind of a maintenance of really strong public services and facilities for our community is an important value for me.
Sorry, apparently someone has to let me unmute.
Oh.
So
Who's
over
in
to you,
charge?
Marco. I won't mute again. I'm off muting.
I hate to burst your earlier comment there, Lindsay, about how we all have, rural or near rural roots. I was born in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, and my family immigrated to Edmonton. So no, very big city. When I first started my career as an air traffic specialist, which is like air traffic controller and weatherman all rolled into one, I actually spent 4 years in Inuvik, Northwest Territories. And so when I say I've been up north, I've been really up north. Thanks, Deanna, for the shout out to Rotterdam. When I had the opportunity, I'd been up there 4 years and I was ready to come out. My daughter had been born up there, which was really neat. And I was told I could get Grand Prairie right away. And it's like, oh, that's still north. Lloydminster, wasn't interested in that one. And then they said Medicine Hat. I'm like, Medicine Hat? Where's that? I had no idea. And that was in 1995. And I came down here once, took a drive through downtown. I had one colleague that was down here already, kind of showed us around a little bit, and I instantly fell in love with the city. So in 1995, we moved here, been here ever since. And the way I describe Medicine Hat to a lot of people, it's almost everything you'd want in a big city without most of the issues. We have retail, we have services, we have a wonderful climate here, but we don't have someone I think mentioned Toronto earlier, we don't have the hours-long commutes. There's nowhere in town you can't get to in 20 minutes, 25 if it's rush minute. So it was easy to fall in love with Medicine Hat, and although I've had opportunity to transfer out, I'm like, no, this is where I want to be. So I was really, really happy to come here. With regards to my platform, I've talked a lot about the two key pillars, addressing the lack of transparency, which we've all discussed, and also trying to be what I call a real representative of the people. And I mentioned this for those that saw me or watched the forum, that I'll have an opinion on a topic or an issue, and I'll share it. I'll debate it, respectfully, of course. But when the time comes for me to decide or vote on it, then it's my responsibility to listen to the people of Medicine Hat to do that. Now, I'm not going to ask for a referendum every time we go to amend a land use bylaw. We're still getting elected to do a job. But when it becomes something big, like the rec master plan, sale of the power utility, which I was also opposed, and full marks to Alison for that change.org. What did you have, like 5,000 signatures within 2 weeks or something?
In less than a week. I think we had almost 1,000 in 5 days or something.
Yeah, yeah, it was absolutely spectacular. And I tell everybody I talk to, it's like, do you remember that change.org? Yeah, well, that was Alison. That was her. So shout out to you. That was terrific.
Thanks.
So when it's something big like that, we as representatives have a responsibility to educate the people of Medicine Hat so that they understand it. When you have politicians saying, oh, well, it's too complex of an issue for the people to understand, I don't buy that. That's our job. Make it so that the people understand it, they understand the choices, and that they also understand the implications of those choices, and then listen to them.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I want to do. Some of the things I see, and the other, like Alison and Rona Lise, I've touched on, is this idea that the city seems to have a lot of vision, but not a lot of plans. The waterfront development is an excellent idea. Waterfront development vision, it's not a bad idea. Again, I'm Dutch. You build close to water, I get a little excited. But there's no plan in place. And I understand that, of course, that this town square development was something they did with federal grant money that they jumped on.
Provincial, yeah.
But what if it's the wrong thing? What if we actually do come up with a plan and this doesn't fit into it? What do? Do we tear it down and waste all the time, money, effort, material that went into it? Or do we water down our plan so we're not getting exactly what we want or what's best for us because we're saddled with this thing?
Right.
Again, yeah, it's vision without a plan.
Marco,
yeah,
I'm going to move on.
Please do. Oh yeah, because I'm like Ramona. I could go for days.
I totally that your comments on public participation, transparency, and planning, we're all hearing that, and we all really like. I know everyone on this call for sure. That's top of mind for all of us. Ramona, what is the top thing that made you want to run for council, which is not necessarily something that you ever thought you would do? I know I never thought I would do it, but what's the top thing, and what are your thoughts on how you would address that one issue that kind of brought you to where you are now?
Yeah, for sure. Well, in my work, I'm a public servant, and I've been for a long time. But in the type of work I do, I'm in the courtroom, and the courtroom is open, which means I don't do anything behind closed doors. If you want to come and watch me work and report on what I do, or talk to your friends about what I'm doing and criticize it, you're welcome to. And I think that openness, we keep saying the word transparency, but I mean, in the courtroom, you can come and watch me work. And I just think with council, we haven't seen that. So that concerned me. But more importantly than that was probably when the COVID crisis really happened. I really started thinking, where are the councillors? Where's the mayor? Why am I not hearing from them regularly about this? I want to see, I want to be encouraged. I want to know there's a plan. I want to know that more than just, we get a report from one person every 2 weeks. I think that we needed so much more in terms of communication to bring hope to a really terrible situation that we're still in, and we still need that communication. So it was actually COVID that drove me closer and closer to this conclusion that I did have the skills to run for council. And I'm happy, as I have been my whole career, if the media or a person from the public or anyone wants to know about the law, what I've done in the courtroom, why I've done something, to talk to them about it. And those sometimes are hard questions, because as the Crown, nobody really likes what you're doing. The police don't like it, the accused doesn't like it, the victim may not like it, but I'm accountable to the law. I'm accountable to the decisions I made. I'm accountable to the people that talk about it. So that really open, direct communication is really the reason that I'm one of the candidates.
I just want to follow up on that a little bit. I totally agree. I often get asked for myself, and you may have heard my answers on this. What would you do to increase the openness? How would you kind of reach out to more people or get that information out there? I know Marco was talking about make it accessible. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that it's not as complicated as it sounds. I deal with incredibly complicated legal concepts daily, but then I have to explain it to a jury that has no legal training whatsoever. So no matter how complicated it is, there is a way to explain it in a way that everyone is going to understand it and accept it, or not accept it, and that's okay, but at least they understand what you did. So my idea is that we just need to see the councillors more. We need to hear them talking. Certainly social media has been a big part of this election. I've been doing sort of these summaries of the council agendas and minutes that we're able to access online, which is not all of the information, but at least it's some. So spending, 10, 15 minutes to talk to people directly about what's going on, I think is really important. And of course, to be accessible, all councillors have email, they all have phone numbers, and to actually respond to those in a meaningful way and not just, oh yeah, I got your email, right? Yeah. The citizens contacting you because they're concerned about something, which happens to me all the time with victims of crime or witnesses, then I really need to make the time to call them back and make sure that they understand what's happening. And again, they don't need to accept it, that's okay, but at least I can help them understand.
Yeah. As we all know, coming up with an answer is the easy part. The difficult part is making it short, concise, and accessible. That's what takes the longest time with any answer. Alison, what do you think is upcoming, like an upcoming matter for the city that the city most needs to be planning for now? And what would you do to kind of plan for that?
Yeah, so I mean, kind of at the root of all of it, or the first thing is going to be COVID response and kind of coming out of the pandemic. I don't really have any good answers for that. And I think probably all of us would have say that as the primary focus coming out of COVID, that we're going to have to work with this. But if we're looking beyond that to kind of just general like city business and trying to determine the way forward in some of those things, I actually think there's two things. One is the sustainability of our electric utilities and what's happening with our energy division. There's a lot of issues there around the well reclamation, sustainability when we are looking at increased carbon tax. And so I would like to see some strategic planning around that with some actual plans for moving forward in incorporating some energy efficiencies into our municipality. So I do have a list of things on my platform piece around that, but I think we should be kind of working towards that. The other thing is climate issues. For us, I mean, we live in the Palliser Triangle. I experienced this as a gardener. We're in, I don't know, the third year of drought. We need to be thinking about water issues for our community, and even just like drinking water. What happens when the river is so low? How are we going to deal with that? And the other thing that we see happening more frequently is extreme weather events. So working towards some planning around that, I think is really important. We have the berms now for the next time we have floods, and that's great, but we have to look beyond just flood mitigation to some other weather issues and how they affect us in our day-to-day lives. So I would say those would be kind of two of my priorities going forward.
Yeah, and like you said, drought resilience, that's going to be a huge issue for us going forward. We're in an agriculture region. Our industries require water. And of course, we require water both to drink and for food production. Do you have any thoughts on how we might go forward with the water issue specifically?
Yeah, well, I think we should be using city council, city staff, and then talking to experts. I mean, we don't have to educate ourselves entirely on this by ourselves. There are people out there who are doing the work right now to look at that. And so getting some of those people together in a committee and working towards having a plan, I think is really important. And then actually doing the things from the plan. And that's something that I looked at back with the energy plan was we had something in 2017, nothing really came of it. It was even hard to find that document in the first place. We need to have a really like a strong vision and strategy for the future, again, that long-term planning, and then be working towards it and actually making steps to incorporate those changes in our community.
Yeah, thank you, Alison. Over to you, Marco. What do you perceive as the biggest challenge for businesses, or like business owners, businesses in our community? And what would you do to, or what do you foresee that council could do to assist with those challenges?
Thanks for the question. Some of the business people I've talked to, and I know several of you have alluded to this as well, is having access to a deep and diverse workforce, having good employees. And the way we do that is to go back to something that we all talk about and support, is make Medicine Hat a choice, a city of choice that people want to come to, that want to live here, that want to find opportunity here, whether it's as a business owner or as a worker. So we go back to that, you know, the livable neighborhoods idea, that if people want to live here, then they come here, they see the opportunities, and that allows us to grow. And one of the ways to do that for business, in addition to the maintaining neighborhood recreational facilities, which we all support, is also, this goes back to another thing that I've mentioned, is the idea of taking care of our own, our city staff. I've had some very blatant and candid, and in some cases troubling, conversations with city staff that see things that are not being done well or properly, and they have no avenue, no vehicle to bring these up in a meaningful way that gets action, and in some cases protects them. There are employees that I've spoken to, or family members of those employees, that have said when they made suggestions for improvement, their managers threatened them with discipline, if not termination. That's crazy. So if we get our employees engaged, supported, making our departments work better, then when the businesses come to them for service, whether it's getting a permit or, you know, anything like that, rezoning, whatever the case is, they come away with a positive experience, both in dealing with a happy employee and they get the result they want. That word gets out, and these entrepreneurs talk to each other. And they say, hey, Medicine Hat's a great place to set up a business or a great place to expand. This now becomes a, you know, self-perpetuating thing. We have people moving to the city because they want to be here, because we have wonderful neighborhoods. We have businesses that are excited to be here because they're getting support and service from the city. And now these people coming to the city have a place to work. So you see how all that ties in together. I think, you know, the taking care of our employees, very first thing I'd want to do, employee engagement survey, and not an internal one, an external one. Other industries have used that. I had the pleasure of being part of that through my work with NAV Canada and the Tower, and I have seen absolutely the massive improvement that happens when the higher ups in the organization see the data. You've talked about this, Lindsay, how we need to be data driven. They see the data, they see where the problems are, and then they take steps. And then a year later, they do another one and they see the progress. We're now at a point where we only have to do employee engagement every 3 years because it's gotten so good that we don't have to revisit it every year. So yeah, getting the city to be a city of choice, an efficient and responsive and engaged workforce at the city, and a livable neighborhood, that's what's going to make those businesses grow.
Yeah, thank you, Marco. So Ramona, we all change over time. How have you grown in the past 5 to 10 years? What's different and what's the same?
Well, my whole life is different than it was 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, I was sort of looking at my life. I was turning 40 10 years ago, and I was like, what is my life going to be like? And I realized that I really wanted to be a parent. And as I was getting older, you have to make some decisions sometimes in life. So I decided I should be a parent, and that's what I should do. And so I am. And so I had twins 8.5 years ago. So the the ease of my life before is completely gone. But I stay at home more, which means I have more time to read and do things. But it did change the way that I viewed the city, because as a single person, I was involved. Marco and I are involved in musical theater for many years. We've known each other for a while, and so I was doing lots of community things on lots of boards. On musical theater was certainly one I enjoyed a lot. Medicine Family Services. But then when I had my children, it really changed my focus to look around to say, I love living here, but I want my children to really be able to say that they're proud to be from Medicine Hat. Because I grew up in Grand Prairie. When you say you're from Grand Prairie, it doesn't come, unfortunately, with a great deal of pride. It was a hard place to grow up. And I really want my girls to say, wherever they end up in life, to say, I had the best childhood in Medicine Hat. It was an amazing city to grow up in. I loved going back to visit my mom and all of my mom's friends. I hope that's what they say. And their friends who still live here. And I hope that they choose to come back here themselves after finish their education to really continue to be part of the community. So the biggest change for me in the last 10 years really is becoming a parent. It really changed the filter with which I looked at the city.
Thank you. Yeah, it makes you think about the future a little bit more too, I would suspect. So Alison, speaking of that, politics has seemed very divisive, to say the least, over the last number of years. What are your thoughts on this, and how would you work to bring us back to a state of unity? Like, where do we go from here?
Yeah, this is one of the things I like about municipal politics versus provincial and federal, is that it's not a party system. And I think going into it with the assumption that everyone who's around the table is there to make the community a better place for everybody, and that we all want the best for our community. And I think also being open to hearing other people's opinions and diversity of thought. We need that. We need a lot of different voices at the table talking about their values, what's important to them, impacts in their life. And so I think listening is a really important part of that, bringing people back together, and just having trying to understand, having a mentality of that, not that you know everything or your way is the only way, but that we can all learn from each other and then work towards a common goal. So yeah, we all want a thriving and vibrant community. And so what I try to do is, I don't have a lot of conflict with people, I guess, I don't know, but try to find something you can agree on, and then you work from there. Or if it's like either as the starting point or as the end point. So do you have the same goal? Well, how can we work towards that goal? Or are you starting from the same place? You've maybe different views of where it should go. Listen to each other and be willing to change your mind about things too. Like I want to hear other people's ideas, and I'm not above saying, oh, I was wrong, or that's interesting to think about. I never thought of it that way. That kind of changes my view of it. So it's generally an openness, I think, in conversation.
Yeah, that's kind of a theme. I totally agree. I think, just, I'm sure all of you have experienced this as well as you've been out talking to people. We have so many common goals as a community. We have very few things that really divide us. And yet we always tend to focus on the things that divide us. So yeah, once I feel like that goal setting and coming up with a common goal, maybe we have positions that are different, avenues to get there that are different to begin with, but if we focus on the goal, that's key. So Marco, there's council committees.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to choose one that you could sit on, which one would it be and why?
So this is my job interview with you as mayor and me as the councillor. I like it.
I like it.
Yes, I really love the conversations that have been coming up lately on the idea of rotating committee assignments. That makes perfect sense. What better way to make sure that councillors are educated in all the departments and divisions of the city, so that when we're seeing presentations or we're having to make decisions, we're doing that from a position of knowledge. Now, with the entirely plausible possibility of a new council, how do we select, what committees to start with? It's fairly obvious, I would think, that you would look to a councillor's experience, background, in some cases even their interest. And for that, I would choose for myself energy, utilities, and infrastructure for two reasons. One, that is the committee that most directly deals with the airport. And airports are very unique entities. They are governed by numerous regulatory agencies, NAV Canada, Transport Canada, Environment Canada. There is very particular requirements, very peculiar language, and 30 plus years in aviation, over 26 of them here at the Medicine Hat Airport. I know the airport. I know the people involved. I know what the requirements are. To me, that makes a lot of sense for me to be at least the initial assignment for committee. The other thing is, and this goes to the transparency comment, was that I've been using the Energy Committee meetings as an example of the lack of transparency. 80% of their meetings in the past 3 years have been completely behind closed doors. The others were just partially open, and the topics discussed weren't really all that important. I would love to be the person to go into that committee and pull that curtain back and say, okay, yes, there are times where it is appropriate, if not even necessary, to keep it closed to the public. If you're dealing with personnel issues, for example, is one example. But 80%, no. All of you have seen the agenda items. They say Freedom of Information Privacy Act, Section 24. I've read Section 24. All it states is when a public body can close a meeting, not that it shall. So this is a conscious choice by the people that have that can make that decision to close the meeting. And I want an explanation why. Also, just as a quick aside, I did see in the chat earlier someone asking a question about the airport and airlines. If we can get to that, I would love to answer that one. But if not, I think it was Mike's iPhone that posed it. Please contact me directly. I'd love to talk about the airport.
Thanks, Marco. I did have one other question in mind for everyone. And I know, Ramona, you've gone over all of the agenda packets for council, and since you decided to run, maybe even before, but you didn't broadcast it before.
Yeah.
So
I like to read.
and I'm sure the other two of you also have been reviewing them as well. People have noticed that when they watch council vote, it's almost always unanimous. So the question is, does that mean it's an old boys club? It probably doesn't specifically mean that, but why do you think that's happening? So I'll go Ramona, Marco, Alison this time. Is that okay?
Sure.
I want to make sure Marco has time. I feel like the meeting that happens that starts at 3:30 before the public part of the meeting, the fact that we don't know what's going on there and decisions are being made, it makes me wonder whether certain council people are feeling pressure to just agree and go along, or flip side, are they doing the homework to have an opinion, right? It's much easier to just agree with the majority if you haven't done the work to ask the questions. So I don't know that answer, and I'm not being critical of council in terms of the work that they're doing, because I don't know what the work they're doing because I'm not allowed to see it. But it really seems like at the sort of pre-meeting, or that those decisions are being made. And so when it comes out, it's like the council meetings happen so quickly and without any real debate. Like try to think of the last time you saw a really strong debate in the council meeting that was open to the public, as opposed to the one that's not. So yeah, I just think that is there an old boys club? I hate to use the word because I don't like being painted with different words either. But yeah, there is certainly people that have a lot in common with one another. There isn't the diversity in council that I wish that there was. And I will say, I'm just going to lam this out there, that I was the 31st candidate to join in the fray, the big battle royale that everyone's really peaceful. It was a battle royale. I love conflict. I live in a world of conflict. But yeah, I looked at it and I said, well, there's 31 people running. Okay, great. And so when I spoke to the clerk, I said, how many of those are women? And she said 6. I said, that's not half. And so, yeah, like put my name in for sure. And there's not even diversity amongst, gender in council. So it's hard to have a diverse set of opinions and debate when people don't come from diverse backgrounds. So if that's an old boys club, sure. Do I think that all white men of a certain age are in the old boys club? Hell no. I have met so many open-minded, thoughtful, yeah, Marco, like progressive thinking men. So I paint them with all the same brush either. But yeah. I do worry about the lack of diversity there, that we're not getting all points of view heard in the powerful way that they should be.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's so true, Ramona. I think people talk about the old boys club and everyone recognizes, like, it's not good for men or women. Like, it's good for the old boys club. That's what it's good for. Marco, what are your thoughts?
This actually will also tie into a little bit about the caution that people are having with the idea of an entirely new council, that they're worried that we won't know what we're doing. Just because we weren't on council doesn't mean a lot of us don't have a lot of committee and political experience. So when I look at, if you look at the agendas, and yeah, like Ramona, I've been reading them. I go to committee meetings when they're open, as well as council meetings. At the council meeting, right near the bottom, there's notice of motion. And normally that's used by a councillor to let everybody else on council know that at the next meeting, I'm going to bring something up, give you time to prepare for it, learn about it, this, that, and the other thing. But there is a procedure that allows them to bring the motion forward immediately with unanimous consent. An example of that was when Councillor Turnbull proposed $4.5 million COVID relief that came in the way of a utility credit. Which is a whole other issue. I won't discuss that one. But he asked for unanimous consent to bring it forward. They granted it. They discussed it for about 5 to 10 minutes and voted on it. So either these councillors thought 10 minutes is long enough to discuss a $4.5 million expenditure, or this was all discussed beforehand and then very quickly brought up, acknowledged, voted on, passed, before media or the public has any chance to react to it. And that's where that, I don't know if that's necessarily old boys club, but where a lot of that work is being done that we don't know about. Another example of that, when they talk about how the whole Invest Medicine Act RFP was done, in public view, in open council. I actually have a newspaper clipping somewhere around here in my pile where there's a direct quote that says, this RFP represented the will of council, and this is almost a direct quote, and was voted on in closed session. Point blank, black and white, there is the evidence that they are making big, important decisions we know nothing about. Right.
So I'm gonna go over to Alison. Alison, if you have more to say about that, go for it. If not, let me know what you think the impacts of this has been. And we are running short of time, so I'm also going to get you to give your shout out to your social and website so that everyone can check you out, and then I'll give everybody else a chance to do that too.
Yeah, so I'm going to actually agree with what Ramona said. I feel like there's not really any way to know how much work is being done and how much debate is happening in that meeting ahead of time in the closed portion. And so I really feel like I can't say it again, but we do want more diversity because yes, often it's like unanimous or like 7-1, that kind of thing. And I think it's good to know the reasons behind why decisions are being made. And again, I think it comes down to that issue of communication coming from the city, having good communication around issues, so that when council is voting, and if it is unanimous, then people feel like, oh, well, I know why they were voting that way, because they put out all this information saying like how much this is going to cost, what the alternatives were, and what kind of the inclination was of the best kind of decision was going to be. So some background, I guess, information is helpful. Some
evidence, maybe.
Yes, some evidence. Because even honestly, if I could say back to the rec facilities, like I've been kind of working on this since last fall, and trying to find out information is really difficult. And then even now we have this new report that has come out from Parks and Rec. But again, we don't have any prices attached to anything. So there's no way to actually feel like you're making a really informed and good decision, because we don't know what's the cost of repairs versus the cost of new, or what are locations being looked at. Like, we don't have enough information, even as a community, not even as a city councilor, but people in the community deserve to know the reasons behind things as well. And I just want to say, there was a gentleman called me. He said something to me, and I just love it so much. I wrote it down, and he said, "We're not so fragile that we can't be told the truth." And I feel like that is so accurate. We all deserve to know the status of everything in the city. It's our city. And so to be part of the decision making, it's really important. Everyone can go to my website, alisonvandyke.ca, and there's links to all my social media and everything else on there, my platforms on there, and other media that I've done. So thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Ramona, where can people find you?
Yeah, I've got a website as well, RamonaRobins.com. Not AnnaliseRobins.com, but RamonaRobins.com. And a lot of times I get questions via email or social media, and so I take those answers and post them in sort of frequently asked questions, so that if someone's asking me a question, you probably, like a lot of people have had the same questions, which is great, because then you know those are things you really care about. And so I do have that portion of my website that would allow you to see what the previous answers have been, and hopefully that helps people decide how they wish to vote.
Well, I am very jealous of your social media savvy. That is a great idea. And it may have been suggested to me before.
Lindsay, I can't even get my own name on Zoom. Like, don't. I learned. Fair. I can learn, but not, I guess, under extreme pressure today.
Fair. How about you, Marco?
Yeah, Facebook, obviously, the website, electmarcojansen.com, email elect.marco.jansen@gmail.com. And if nothing else, look for the guy on the gray e-bike with the orange helmet, because that's probably me fixing my signs. And yeah, thanks for doing this, Lindsay. I know we're short on time. I wish we could do this for a couple hours. Again, I want to shout out to Michael there. If you have that airport question, you now know how to get a hold of me. I'd love to talk to you about that. And yeah, thanks for doing this. Yeah, I'll be at Copperleaf on Tuesday, if people want to come down to that, from 10 till noon. And then I'm also doing Moose and Squirrel on Thursday in the evening. So yeah, please. And
awesome.
I really love how so many businesses are welcoming us, like Station and
for sure,
and all those other ones, to facilitate the opportunity for people to talk to us.
Well, there's so many candidates, and I'm at clarkformayor.ca, and I just want to say how blessed I feel that, like, the candidates that are running, you know, we don't always agree, but it's always respectful, and it's always, you know, very well informed, and it's been such a wonderful experience to get to talk to all of the other candidates and kind of find out where we differ and how we can learn from each other. So I really appreciate you guys coming on.
It was nice to meet you, Lindsay. I think people think when you're a lawyer in Medicine Hat, we all know each other, like celebrities or something, but we're not celebrities, number one. But, you know, like when you have, we're from Canada, you know my cousin from Toronto? Like, no. But Lindsay, this is the first time we've ever virtually met. So it was nice to hang out with you. And of course, Alison, I saw you a bit today. And yes. Marco, good times. We'll see you out on the campaign trail for sure.
And just a note, don't forget, if when you're voting, to make sure you go all the way down at the list to Van Dyke, and yeah. Right is at the end too. take a look, take a peek at the whole list before you
And
vote.
advance polls start this Saturday.
Yes.
Yep. That's right.
Yep.
All right. Thank you everyone for coming and letting us have this opportunity to speak about our platforms and answer some questions. And don't forget to vote. As Marco said, starting on the 9th. Early voting starts on the 9th. So we will sign off and thank you again for coming.
Thanks so much, Lindsay.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Stay healthy.
See you, everyone.